Support for the Klyph Notes podcast comes from Acapella Apparel, an idea born from a love of hip-hop, funk, and soul music and its surrounding cultures. With fashion being a huge visual part of the cultures, they've created expressive images to pay homage, invoke nostalgia, and showcase the elements that make up the lifestyle and cultures of these genres. Acapella, apparel for the music lifestyle. For more information, check out acapella.com. That's AKEPELE.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, the show you're about to listen to may contain explicit content. So guess what? You need to put them babies to sleep. This is for grown folks only. So we're not held liable for anything you might be offended by. Thank you for listening.
A couple of shout outs I want to give. As always, shout out to my guy Theory Has It for doing the official theme music for the Klyph Notes podcast. That's my guy for real. Shout out to X-Ray FM for their constant support of what we do by allowing us to record the Klyph Notes podcast right here. And shout out to you, everybody who's tuned in and supported what we've done over the time that we've been doing it. We're definitely grateful for that. A couple of other shout outs I want to give, man. A couple of people who've really stepped up and have given support to what I do with the DJ Klyph production situation. I think that on the last podcast I talked about we got a new sponsor for Mic Check, which is dope. Shout out to Cascade Record Pressing, a group that I've been wanting to work with for a while. A bunch of really, really good people. And they are actually the only record manufacturing plant in the Northwest. So if you're an artist and you think about putting your stuff on vinyl, especially if you're in the Portland area, you should definitely check them out, man. The website is cascaderecordpressing.com. And, quality vinyl for people who love music. That's what they're all about. And then we have a new sponsor for Mic Check, another group that I'm really excited to have an opportunity to build with. They're starting their support of Mic Check for our December show, which is on the 27th of December. Ear Trumpet Labs. You may have seen their mics. You've probably seen their mics, man. They stand out. They really, truly stand out, man. They're really good looking mics, really great sounding mics. And again, another Portland company. These microphones are hand built right here in the city, man. And handmade microphones, you can't beat that from right here in the PDX, man. So shout out to Ear Trumpet Labs for their support of what we do over here at DJ Klyph Productions. All right, super psyched for this episode. It's dope to have this cat here live on Klyph Notes. We've been talking about doing this for a little while. We've been building over time. I've had an opportunity to rock with him on the Welcome to the Neighborhood radio show. I've had an opportunity to have him on Mic Check, which is really, really dope. But without any further ado, man, let me stop talking and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself.
What's up, y'all? My name is Samuel the First, coming out of Portland, homegrown from here.
Yes, sir.
Shouts out to Klyph for having me out, man.
Bro, look, come on.
Always giving me a support platform.
And that's what I'm about, bro. That's what I'm about. How you doing, though?
I'm good, man.
Yeah?
Busy as ever, but I'm good.
It's funny you say that because I'm going to jump right into that. Like, you are forever busy, bro. Like, I see you on nonstop. I see you on shows. You definitely put in work for your craft, which I think is dope.
Yeah, man. I mean, not to get it twisted, I work a full-time job, so I do this and then work full-time. And, as of late, I've been doing less shows to kind of focus on making sure I have an income while I make this music work.
Bruh, I understand.
Yeah,
110%.
It's definitely been paying off, so it's good, but it's been trying as far as making sure my endurance is in check as far as a career goes and making sure I can maintain this pace kind of thing, because it has been 110% nonstop, just making sure I can mitigate and handle kind of everything that I'm putting on my plate at once.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, good for you for definitely checking and making sure that you're keeping things in balance and being mentally and physically and emotionally healthy, because I think when you're doing art, sometimes it's one of the things that kind of gets put to the side.
Yeah, man.
So
a lot of these artists struggle because of that,
Yeah.
the expectations and what they got to put out constantly, just because of their fan exposure and what their fans expect out of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But like you said, you're from Portland, man. How'd you get your start? How'd you get your start emceeing?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably been writing raps since I was probably 12. Literally rapping and recording since I was probably 15. That all started just from, I mean, I'm a white suburban kid, but I had, I was stealing my older brothers and sisters' rap CDs, when I was way back, and my
Right.
mom thought Snoop Dogg was the devil and all that kind of shit. But I was sneaking those CDs because that was my rebellious self, trying to find something I wasn't supposed to, find or listen to, or, I fell in love with it. And that old school kind of Southern 90s hip hop is what I really adapted to. And, once I grew up and got a deeper voice, I kind of started playing with that and realized that my sound kind of lies heavily within movement within a beat and that bounce within it,
Yeah.
because I have kind of a lot of different ways I can change my vocality with that deep voice that I like to put on record.
Word.
Yeah.
That's crazy that that at this stage of your career, you're that aware of your skills, sort of the pocket that you fit in. I think a lot of times, I mean, like you said, you've been doing this for a minute, but younger artists are still trying to find, like, where do I really fit in? I think it's
Yeah.
oftentimes just following the wave versus like this is what I excel at.
Yeah, I was actually just talking to my close friend, and he's a producer. His name's Loza from Portland, but we were just talking about how a lot of artists are struggling with just trying to do too many different song types, or
Yeah.
albums or mixtapes at once,
Yeah.
and it's kind of making you a jack of all trades but a master of none.
Yeah.
So one thing that I was blessed with was mentorship. Obviously, Brookfield Deuce is someone that kind of A&R'd this whole project and oversaw how I kind of honed in on my sound. So he actually sat me down and gave me kind of a long lesson on where did all of this originate from? Where did I find this sound, and why do I adapt to this kind of type of music that I create? So we kind of boiled it down, and I have a deeper understanding for my own music now. And that kind of leads into why the album is called what it is.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Shout out to Brookfield Deuce, who's been a guest on Klyph Notes. That's my guy, man. And I think it's cool to see that he's using his gift and his passion to spread forth, or like you said, to A&R your project, and to really give love and guidance to younger artists. And then big ups to you for being receptive to that, man.
Man, I just feel like really blessed to have someone care that much about, my success in it, just because I felt like there was a point when, my young immature self as an artist was like, I just need a manager to give me these opportunities and I'll blow up.
Right.
And it's not really like that. It's just I needed someone to tell me what I'm doing right and doing wrong within this, just because I didn't have that specific oversight, because everybody's busy doing their own A&R for themselves.
Right.
And so it was, I don't know, Deuce is someone else, man, for his character and what he does for other people is definitely something else. He came into Portland just out of nowhere, and I just hit him up through a Twitter message because I had heard his music that he was just putting together with Glenn Waco and other artists,
Yeah.
and it just bounced off from there, just because he saw that I was trying to work.
Yeah.
It was nothing more than that.
That's what's up, man. And I think that's a huge testament to oftentimes what folk can do. Just reach out. You never know who might be in a position to give you a little bit of guidance, or just a little bit of a step forward here in the city, which is dope.
Shoot your shot.
Exactly.
That's what
exactly. I want to talk a little bit about. So we were talking about all the shows that you've done, and you've done a grip of shows, B. You know what I'm saying? Where artists come through the city.
Yeah.
What would you say was your greatest experience opening for an artist so far?
Easily Freddie Gibbs, man.
Okay.
Anybody that knows me personally and has been around since I started doing music knows that Freddie Gibbs is like my idol in rap.
Oh, word.
Just strangely, I came across his music just kind of when I was at the peak of my, love and passion in it. I was just constantly finding this new music and almost in this obsessive mode for it.
Yeah.
And I found Freddie Gibbs, and it was just that perfect sound that my ear was looking for. And he kind of became like a living Tupac to me. I don't want to make that, and I feel like I'm stepping on toes by saying that, but that's kind of how it was to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, just making all this music, and then idolizing him, and then finally getting this opportunity to open for him. It was just a crazy experience. I don't think I ever sold that many tickets before, too. I was in like the over 100 sales and tickets, and and Gibbs didn't have a wireless mic, so we had to use mine. Ended up signing in at the end of the night, so it was just a crazy experience that didn't really feel real until the next day.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's been some crazy shows. I mean, also local shows. I've been a part of some great stuff.
Yeah.
Like that Pico event that we did, the TBA festival.
Yeah.
But I don't know, just that one had me kind of beside myself
Right.
for the first time.
Right. Well, I mean, and I think, that's there's definitely something to be said for meeting people that you've listened to for a minute, or people that you look up to, or you just appreciate their talent. I remember years ago when I was blessed enough to work with Anthony Sanchez at Runaway Productions to help promote the show when Rakim came to Portland.
Dang.
And they got an opportunity to MC that event, and then to like meet like sort of what you're talking about, like how you look at Freddie. I mean, that's like, to me, Rakim's the GOAT.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I exactly, I understand.
Was it something that was like it incrementally happened? Like, oh, I'm on the Rakim show, and it's like, oh, I guess I'm emceeing. I guess I'm meeting Duke tonight. It's like,
yeah. I mean, it was I've had an opportunity to do a lot of help Anthony promote a lot of shows and give away tickets on the radio show. So when he was like, "Yo, would you mind?" I was like, "Absolutely." I'll look, see if we can get the station to help sponsor it, and this, that, and the third.
mm-hmm.
And I don't remember if he asked me if I would host it or not. I may have even said, "Yo, you need somebody to host it." You know what I mean?
Right.
Let me make sure I get in the door that way, right? Exactly. And then it was dope. I had an opportunity, like, we put together a promo video, and bro, like, everything, I'm DIY, do it yourself. Everything I've done, I've kind of learned on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
We shot like this promo commercial with all of the opening acts. It was dope. Sold the place out. An amazing show. And then you know how it is, like when an artist, like when a headliner comes, like they go to the green room, they're with their people or whatever. So you never know if you're actually going to get an opportunity to meet them.
You're kind of just standing and seeing if the opportunity is going to present itself.
Exactly. And after the show, was invited to come down to the green room. Rod just like took pictures with people, like was chatting with people, like the realest cat. So definitely, like, one of the top situations in my life.
It's like I see it as those moments as like almost like a refresher, like on how you kind of, it's almost like a reset mode on how you see yourself as like, oh, I can do this, like, because I think that's what we get down on ourselves on as artists, is just we constantly beat up on ourselves, like, can I really amount to this, or can I do this and keep up with these cats? And it's kind of a refreshing reminder, and it's like, I am in this and I am a part of this as is. I don't need to constantly dwell on the fact on if I'm going to be in it, if I'm going to make it into this kind of thing.
Right. That's what's up, B. And I think that that's encouraging for people to hear. I hope that that's encouraging for people to hear, because I think being an artist is no different than, I shouldn't say no different, but it's similar to any other profession that you're in. I mean, you have those ups and downs, and you have those challenges and those struggles. I think one of the differences is that you're doing that in such a public way, and you have a lot of what you do is based on the response that you get, right? I mean, that drives how you put a show together. That drives how you put an album together. So I'm glad that you are in that place where you recognize that. Again, just staying healthy. Staying healthy.
I think it came from kind of a lot of, I mean, as a kid, I felt like I was pretty emotive, or I felt like I could emulate with people a lot. So just understanding, someone else and how you're impacting them,
Right.
whether, I mean, I'm not even saying whether it's through negative words or whatever, but even on stage, through performance, you can see that in the moment, and it's almost just, it's stepping away from what you've scripted and rehearsed, and actually interacting with those people in the moment, because that's where you're going to get that best reaction and the best shows. I think that's what got me a lot more opportunities, is someone seeing that, I didn't go any extra mile, but I found an opportunity within, the moment that I was in interaction with people.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to say, I know I've said this before when we've chopped it up on the radio show, man, but I've seen your actions, and to me, that has gone a long way, I think, in the success you've had thus far. You were one of the people who would regularly come through and support Mic Check, like just supporting Mic Check. And I think it's things like that. That's an example of what you just described. You being there, you being involved, you supporting other artists was one of the things that made it a no-brainer to ask you to rock. So.
Yeah, and it's like it not only is it like a fun thing coming in and just being a part and being entertained by these shows. But it was one thing that I had to sit down with myself and understand. It's like, obviously anybody who's new into this and into just the Portland music game industry, you're an outsider, you're a newcomer, you got to work your way and improve yourself. And I felt like being able to read people's emotions and stuff, I felt like I was just imposing if I was coming into, the first mic check and just asking, to be a part of it.
Yeah.
It's like, I got to find a way to literally show that I'm not only in support, but I want to be a part of this because I understand what it is and what it stands for, kind of thing.
That's what's up.
So, I mean, that's kind of been like a bucket list thing. Like you say, I do a lot of shows, and a big thing I try to pride myself on is like, okay, I did a mic check. It's like, okay, I did a penthouse party. Like, I try to knock the shows off my list because it's really important to me that I am prominent and active in the scene before I step out and go elsewhere, kind of thing.
Word up.
Yeah, because that's how you come back and you have those back-to-back sold-out shows in your hometown at the end of your tour. Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of cool to hear you say that because it gives us an idea of things that we can look forward to in the future.
Yeah, man.
That's what's up.
For sure.
I remember, I don't remember, you can tell me how long ago it was now, but I remember when the official announcement came through that you were a member of Rare Vibe.
Yeah. Man, I don't even know what month it was. I think it was last year, right before summertime. I was in Phoenix visiting family, and Dre called me and just was kind of, picking my brain on where I was at with music. And, he asked me to be in it. And I remember, hearing through the phone, like, he couldn't tell how I was going to react. And I was stoked, I was really happy. And it was a reminder that it was kind of a reward for my hard work, and it was paying off.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dre and I think Deuce, they're kind of collaborating ideas on what they want to do with Rare Vibe as a label, and they're really making some headway on as far as the progress in making sure that they're going to maintain the artists that are on the label and make sure the label succeeds together.
Yeah.
And we've been doing those shows at like the Crystal Ballroom, trying to do things like the Kickback just to make sure it's a cohesive unit that's moving together and no artist is getting left behind or exceeding while someone's being mismanaged or not being attended to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting that you say that because I feel like that really is what it looks like, that you guys do move as a unit. That Rare Vibe, it's obviously a label, but it's it really feels like a collective of individuals who are really truly support one another, as a whole, which I think is really dope.
Yeah, I've kind of noticed, and I read an interesting article on Rolling Stone. They were talking about how rock and roll basically took its really skewed direction, I think in like the 80s when it went like super punk with like Marilyn Manson and really abstract, obscure artists kind of changing how the industry sounded.
Yeah.
I think that's happening in hip hop right now, obviously with the new wave and trap and this younger generation that's coming in.
Yeah.
But Rolling Stone talks about how in that it kind of came back to its centered mode of classical rock. Classical rock kind of took back over as far as people loving it and its exposure. Yeah. And they think that hip hop's going to do the same thing. So I think that maintaining that hip hop core and kind of bringing it back to where it started is going to be almost like an anchor throughout the whole career, just because if you're centered in hip hop, there's almost no way you can fail as long as you're keeping that same sound and kind of progressing through each trend and not staying within that trend, because that's just flash in the pan kind of career.
Yeah. Man, I just, again, your awareness and perception of the genre and where you are, I think is definitely to be commended. And those are the things I think that do work on helping folk have that longevity. So again, I just want to give you props, B.
I appreciate it.
I mean, obviously a student of the big picture, which I think is cool.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I've always been like an obsessive learner, so I think that's where a lot of it comes in.
Yeah.
For sure.
So as someone who's from the city, someone who's, like you've mentioned, you've done shows with that are local shows. You've done shows with touring acts coming into the city. What's your perception of the Portland scene, the Portland hip hop scene? Because we get an opportunity to see, just even really in a short amount of time, we've gotten a lot of opportunity to see change in perception of the city. But as an artist in the city, what's your perception of it?
That's an interesting question. It's definitely when I first came in, it wasn't as big as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
It's budding and it's growing and expanding, and it's finally starting to get regional and national, hints of exposure here and there. It hasn't really gotten there yet, but I mean, I've thought about it before, especially kind of in the height of all these shows I was doing, that we're kind of in an interesting wave of Portland rap right now. Um, I don't really know where it's going to go, but I do think that we're finally kind of going to get our fine-tuned kind of subgenre by city. You know how Pittsburgh did when Wiz Khalifa was finally coming up, and how New York and LA and Seattle kind of have their own sounds. I think Portland's finally going to get its fine-tuned sound. As far as how that exposure is going to play out is something I really don't know, but I feel like right now, since it is so localized, artists got to really focus on building themselves up as a strong infrastructure so they can get out of Portland and then propose themselves to executives, just because the executives haven't really come to the city yet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm wrong on that, but it just feels like it's in a little bit of an immature stage where we're still waiting to break out and have, 5-10 artists that are kind of like emcee or at his level and nationally and globally touring and, selling records.
Yeah. Um, uh, it again, it's interesting to me to get the perspective of the artist, because as a curator and someone who came into the scene and sort of had my perception of it, and like I said, having had an opportunity to see where it's gone over the last couple decades, really, there has been, I think, a certain resurgence to the scene, though the scene has been strong for a lot of years. But with the influx of growth of population in this area, it really makes me wonder, okay, so, is that the thing? Is that something that's going to have an impact, positive or negative?
Yeah. I think it's good that the city has started to support hip hop more.
Huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I remember, when I was first coming in, it was like, Ilmac and the Blue Monk show was like a big, huge thing. And
Right.
police shutting down shows was a huge thing. But, since then it's been a lot of the city supports it and the artists support each other. But we are kind of all building up to that same point as someone's trying to break out. And so it does feel like it gets into this competitive kind of nature mode once you start building that buzz and you start to get traction, because a lot of artists are just fighting to get that traction and to get on the shows that like Mic Check and stuff like that,
Yeah. I mean, that brings up a very good point, actually. As an artist, the competition that you see. So, I mean, we know just historically, that's hip hop, right?
Yeah.
When you think of
Right.
for real, like if you think of the elements of hip hop, not just rapping, right? DJ battles,
Yeah.
MC battles.
That's
graffiti
a
battles,
really good
You know
point.
what I'm saying? And I think that we've seen great examples of that healthy competition. Iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah.
And then we've also seen a lot of the negative that comes from that.
Yeah.
So,
I think people are too quick to beef nowadays.
Mhm.
So it's like no one can really take the honest criticism from one another when it's blatantly told to them.
yeah,
I mean, I feel like I do well with that, through trial and error. I grew up with, older siblings and brothers, and so I've definitely known what it's like to feel beat up on and bullied and stuff. So once you learn to make fun of yourself and be self-deprecating, no one can really make fun of you more than you can.
yeah.
So I see it as a way of, taking honest criticism without leading to, immediate conflict over, someone else's opinion. It's
Right.
like someone's, my music might not be someone else's taste and vice versa, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean someone else isn't going to support it.
Yeah. That's really, really good to hear, and I hope that continues to be the case in terms of, or that concept continues to be the case, but then expands with other artists.
Yeah.
Because I want all the MCs in the city to push one another,
Yeah,
all the DJs to push one another.
That's a big point. I think that when you do say like this is hip hop, that's what we got to remind ourselves in is we all want to be supportive of one another so we can grow together, but I am your direct competitor if we're talking about someone coming to Portland as a market and trying to find an artist to bring up.
Yeah.
So that is business to business competition. It's not personal, but
Right.
we got to get to work and I got to make some money.
Exactly. So you, like you said, you've taken a little bit of a break from doing from a lot of live performances, but you've not taken a break from writing.
No, I don't know if I ever do, but there are writer's blocks
Yeah.
for sure. I've had some serious writer's blocks where I'll stop writing for a couple of months, but I'm never not processing and digesting beats and trying to think of where I'm going to put this and what the next project's going to be. I'm past the current project that I'm about to put out. It just got mastered, working on videos, but I'm already writing and recording past that. So it's a lot of multitasking, but it's a lot of trying to think forward on where's my brain going to be at past this project, and once people receive it and once they're giving me response to it, like where am I going to be at and where can people expect me to be at past the project? That's what I'm kind of working on it and struggling with a little bit.
Yeah. So the previous release you had was
Yeah,
and that was an EP.
that was basically my introduction to Rare Vibe. Nick B had Oh God, I'd say like 6 months before, and I put out almost as like a Rare Vibe-esque tape to kind of play off of Oh God, as far as the look and design, and how it's almost like ad-lib to ad-lib.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of how I brought myself into Rare Vibe, as a quick 4-song tape.
Yeah.
Where I just kind of showcased, wordsmith skills, melodies, and my hook skills. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, before that was a project called Pinehurst with Loza, who I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I would say that was kind of in a lo-fi stage where we were still working out kinks as far as recording ourselves and mixing and mastering.
Yeah.
Since then, I've gone to studios and really made sure it's honed in as far as sound goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've definitely noticed project by project the progression and just my overall knowledge on where I need to be cautious and where I need to mitigate my time and energy.
Yeah. That's what's up. Growth, man.
Yeah.
So that's material that's out that people can go and check out before the new one drops. So the name of the new project,
It's called Self.
which is cool, and I think if you take just a moment, you don't even have to take a moment, you can feel that there's depth to that.
Yeah.
So why Self?
The best way that I can describe it briefly as well is I try to sit down and think, how can I not only get attention, but get through to people and possibly change someone's life with my music in a time where we're in hysteria, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, weird stuff going on politically, socially. People just aren't getting along. They're not seeing eye to eye, and no one feels like their opinion is getting across to anybody, and nothing's getting done.
Yeah.
So while everybody's focusing on each other and societal stuff, I figured, why wouldn't we all take a moment to focus introspectively on how we could change what we're doing wrong internally?
Yeah.
And then how can that basically be channeled and learned from and projected onto someone else so they can make a change themselves. And so thinking of that, I'm doing this introspective view of myself, and out comes this music that I'm hoping someone can use, listen to, and then, look introspectively and hopefully change something or address something that they have a problem with in themselves.
I really, really dig that, bro. I really, really dig that. Because I think that when we have platforms, with that platform comes a responsibility. And it sounds as if that's what you've focused to do with this project.
Yeah, and
take responsibility.
And it felt like at times I was almost kind of just writing and rapping about the same stuff, kind of cliche stuff. And, I sat down with Deuce over, he asked me he kind of boiled down what my personal problems were. And, a lot of that is addiction through family issues. So we basically made a song about, whiskey, which is, we named it Bullet, which is my favorite whiskey. And we kind of channeled my personal problems through this song. And, every song is a component of an issue that I have within myself, with an inner conflict or what have you. But basically we just tried to boil down to, how can we change a life with this album? How could one of these components or one of these songs, reach out to someone who's got, a relative with addiction issues, and they can, relieve themselves or not feel that pain through that song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically just, trying to have more of an impact with my music instead of, having that surface area appeal.
No doubt. one of my favorite tracks. When you gave me an opportunity to listen to the project, Bullet was definitely one that stood out to me, just because of how open and personal it is.
I know your favorite song though.
Bruh, come on. L for Love is the joint, B. For real, for real.
Man, L for Love is a really important song to me just because, yeah, it'll appeal to relationship issues, but I see it more as like an L for Love in music. Like, I've taken a lot of losses to get where I am, and I've been through a lot of moments where I didn't think this was for me and I didn't think I belonged.
Yeah.
But I think that's why a lot of artists are the outliers and are who they are, because it takes a lot of heartbreak and pain and loss to get this kind of impact in your music out.
Yeah.
That's the only way people can really feel you sonically through an MP3, I feel like.
That's deep.
Yeah.
That's really, really deep. You mentioned Deuce a couple times and shared how he's been influential in your growth. And I think when people listen to the album, that's going to be one of the things that stands out right away is that growth. Production wise, who did production on the project?
So most of it is produced by Dead Brains.
Okay.
I have, I think, 2 produced by Dre Slaps. I got 1 Bravo Damo track on there. A young cat from my hometown. His name's Simo. He's got a song on there as well. I don't want to feel like I'm leaving anybody out.
Well, and the reason I asked that is because I think listening through to the project, you hear, I don't want to say growth, because, but just an expansion sonically, you know, in what you put on record, which I think is cool. Was that something that you specifically sought out when you were thinking, okay, what kind of beats do I want to rhyme over?
I think I've always had kind of a taste for beats. I think Self is a lot of that. I think I was just honed in and really figured out what kind of beats I liked sounding at that point.
Yeah.
Because the way that I see it is Pinehurst, I didn't know what I was sound wise on that project. I'm gonna be honest. So I was kind of all over the place just trying stuff out.
Yeah.
I was, introduced into Rare Vibe, and so I had been in talks with Deuce about how can I hone in the sound that I have and what is my actual sound.
Yeah.
So that was kind of me feeling out that sound and finding successful ways. And I had faults that I still hear in the project, but I think Self is finally, I've mastered, I wouldn't say mastered, but I've really honed in on that sound, and I've gotten a strength within it.
Yeah.
And I can kind of feel out my voice, and I know vocally where I stand on those beats. Yeah.
That's what's up, bro. So in terms of the project being presented to a wider audience, I'm very grateful that you've gifted myself with an opportunity to play it on Welcome to the Neighborhood.
Yeah, thank you.
I know my guy OG1 has been playing it in the Mona Sitter at Trailblazer games.
Shouts out to OG1.
But in terms of like mass consumption, do you have a sense of when you might want to release it?
I was supposed to put it out in November, but I keep telling myself December, if, these videos and a couple other things work out. But honestly, man, I just keep pushing it out. I'm honestly thinking beginning of next year, but I'm really working for like December, hopefully Christmas time, if it'll permit. But I got a lot of stuff I got to get done in the meantime. And that has been a lot of, through this project called Self, it has been a lot of like, I got like severely depressed at times because I had to delve into all of these issues and live it. If I was, I'm a perfectionist when I write, so I'm not write a verse in 45 minutes and edit my way through it.
Right.
I literally sit down with it for a day or two and I make sure it's perfected by when I'm done writing.
Right.
So I was feeling a lot of these emotions and feelings throughout, and so I'm honestly kind of relieved to get it out and release it, but I still feel so far from it, and it's been a little bit of like overwhelming feelings with trying to write past it, but still trying to make sure this is put out and promoted right. Because this is going to be my first time, making sure that I'm going to market this album the right way. Yeah.
I mean, being the artist, being your project, I don't know if you can feel this or not, but do you have any sense that what you're doing is different from some of your contemporaries in terms of making this music and doing all of the things that you described before you release it?
Yeah. I don't want to say that acting like I'm better than anybody, but I have noticed, I observe, and I kind of, obviously every artist, they kind of rank themselves. Where do I stand in this room amongst all these other artists? I've just noticed that to stand out, you have to have an MO, and your MO has to make sense. And mine always has just been show up early and, make sure you're on top of your game. Don't get too, drunk or fucked up, to make sure you're not on top, and on point, and make sure you're going to outwork everybody in the room. So part of me outworking everybody is making sure mentally that I'm studied up and I'm ahead of everybody as far as, how I plan and how my plan of attack is for a project.
Yeah.
Just because I don't see much of a point in recording and putting out music if it's just going to be, put out into the universe and hopefully someone from across the globe sees it and blows me up one day.
Right.
Just because that's a false reality in my eyes. I just see it as something that you gotta really create these projects. And, I've seen through artists like J. Cole and Nipsey Hussle and, obviously all the greats, that they're creating these projects, and some of the songs on those projects are years old, so through the anxiety of, I need to get this out, I need to make sure it's done right, there are people and there are projects that have taken years to put together, and it is a work of art because of that.
Yeah.
It basically, what am I trying to say? It gets better over time.
No, but I mean, I definitely feel that, man. I mean, again, being an old head and sort of seeing the progression of this art form, I do feel like we have been in an era where as soon as I release it, because I have a SoundCloud account, or because I have a Bandcamp account, I can quickly, do something and put it out there and then just move on to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to artists who feel that to a certain degree, they have to continue to put music out just to stay relevant in the sense that there's so much noise right now, especially in hip hop, that, it's hard for the consumer to sit and stay with, just stay with the project. But, I do come from an era where, and it was different because you had to get the money to get studio time to record the project, get money to get it mixed and mastered, get it, hopefully somehow have a budget then to market it, and then try to get on a tour, and then you got to work the tour, and you're really spending time with that project. And I appreciate that.
It seemed like it was a lot more step by step,
Yeah.
and structured almost, because to do those things you had to do everything beforehand.
Yeah.
I like what you said on how everything's so accessible that I don't think it's necessary to feel relevant, but I think an artist feels like when they put a song out like that on SoundCloud, or they just put it out on their distribution network, that it's only going to have gravity for a week or two.
Yeah.
People are only going to listen to it for a week or two and then move on.
Yeah.
But it's all a really important component in that is knowing that you got to push it, and you got to create build up before you push it, to make sure people are anticipating it and they're waiting on it, and they're checking it out, a week or two later and showing it to people.
Yeah.
A lot of, translation with who you are as an artist and your exposure to your fan base is if you actually did that extra effort to make sure it was pushed to other people beyond that immediate, first, group of people that and you tune in with and text to listen to the song.
Right.
So there's a lot more volume, and I feel like, the amount of volume is saturating, how much music is in the industry, but I do feel like there is the 1% of artists that are learning to market their music through the social platforms and are learning to make their song last longer than that week or two period that it's up on their recent list for everybody who's scrolling through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And and I think that if you decide to put together an album, right, so more than 4 or 5 songs, so now I've got 11, 12, 15 songs, to me you have so much material there that you have the opportunity to make that last, right? Some people are going to sit with an album and they're going to find their favorite song on their project, like Alpha Love. And then, but there's so much more to the album. One of our local MCs, Mike Capes, released visuals for Concrete Dreams a year after it dropped,
Mm-hmm.
and that really gave his album that much more life.
Mm-hmm.
And I so dug that. And it's funny because I remember when it dropped, like he was getting, I mean, you're always gonna get haters, but like people were like, "Man, this song's a year old and you just releasing the visuals now." And I thought, yeah, because the song has that much behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Without giving, I don't want to give any of your marketing plans away, but you did mention visuals, so you're doing visuals for the project.
Yes, I wanted to make sure I at least had a handful, just to make sure that people are seeing the ideas that I'm putting on paper, because that's one thing that I was afraid of with this project is there's so much gravity behind it that I hope people grasp, and I hope people don't just see it for a scratch in the surface, in the club on your drive home kind of song. I want people to digest it and listen to it 2 or 3 times and really understand that there's a timeline through it. There's just different conflicts and feelings and emotions that I'm hoping they can realize is going to build into projects past it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When you are going through the process of picking songs to do visuals for, did any of that happen like as you were writing the song? Like, hey, I definitely want to figure out a way to do visuals for this.
With Bullet, it did.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Because almost as I wrote the song, there was treatment ideas for the video. So it was an interesting process. I was almost writing the song around what we were going to do for the video, which was a pretty cool way to write around it. But I mean, like you were saying, Capes, he's putting out visuals for his project almost a year later, and I mean, I've thought about doing that for you, so you might get a surprise video.
That's what's up.
soon.
That's what's up. In terms of your team, so we've talked about the influence that that Brookfield has had on your process and really working on A&R in the project, the relationship with Rare Vibe and with Slaps. When you're on stage, Slaps has got your back.
Yeah.
It's interesting to watch that relationship on stage between you and Slaps.
It's been really cool because, I mean, Slaps has definitely had just as much of an impact in how I've developed as Deuce has.
Yeah.
Deuce has just had more of a forefront opinion on it, but Slaps and I's relationship I feel like is interesting because it's developed through those shows. And a lot of those successful, sold out crowds we were doing was just the energy that we would create and how we kind of bounce off of each other and we feel that.
Yeah.
I know that he has my back when I run out of breath. I know that he's going to, carry energy when I don't have it and I need to, recoup.
Yeah.
So through that, we just have kind of developed a deeper knowledge of one another. Just through, even that Penthouse Party show for the Boo Bomb contest. I mean, I was super anxious and self-conscious about my set. I had never thought that much afterwards about how well or how, what I didn't do on my set. But, he's always been someone that kind of, steps aside with me and asks me, how do you think this went? And like, what do you think you could do better? What do you think we did well? And then that's when we bounce more ideas. And I almost, within that moment when I'm all anxious about stuff, he kind of psychs me out of it because you know how Slaps is, he's always making people laugh and he always, kind of reminds people to appreciate that unique value and that rare value that they bring to the table.
Right. Exactly.
Shout out Slaps.
Exactly. And that is what it is. I mean, I think if people listen to your music and then even see you on stage, watch you perform on stage, everything about your presentation is just so smooth, which I think is cool. I mean, to me, that's your style. And Slaps is like just a ball of energy, just nonstop energy. So when you see that on stage and how that works so well together, I think it creates such an amazing stage show to see that on stage.
I love it. And I love the moments too when it's like when you realize everybody's being receptive how you plan.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like you got them in the palm of your hand and you could go any which way direction you want to go.
Yeah.
So, I could do something like Bullet, and within Bullet I could get serious, but then midway through the song I could get really hyped and jump with them in the crowd. And some songs we could just totally switch it up and play, a song that me and Dre got together, and then it just becomes fun. That's some of my favorite stuff, is just when it's a fun time and people are dancing and enjoying themselves and not, having to listen to me bar out, Dre hates when I have to bar out on people and they got to listen intently.
Chopping it up with my guy Samuel first. I just want to take a quick break here to once again talk about some of the folk who support what we do here in the city, but specifically who support the Klyph Notes podcast. I want to shout out my folk over at Acapella Apparel. They've been rocking with me for over a year now, and what they do in the city I think is really, really cool. So I highly encourage you to go check out the website acapella.com. It's AKEPELE.com. And their tag is real, man. It's apparel for the music lifestyle. So check them out, Acapella, and let's just continue to support the supporters for real. So we don't have a date yet in terms of when the project might release. But I have to imagine you're thinking about what you want to do for like a release event, huh?
Mm-hmm. I think I'm gonna do some. I don't know venue wise yet, but I'm still doing trying to get merch pinned down, and then we're gonna do some sort of listening and then release party.
Word.
I think so. I kind of want to mix it up and keep people on their toes as far as not making the whole album and its release all be one giant event, because then that's just a giant stress. And yeah, but I have a lot of good plans for it, and just how I plan on marketing it and those videos to the people once the project is out. I feel like it's a roll of the dice, but through this long process of marketing myself and working within Portland, I really do feel like I'm ready with this solid body of work, and I trust myself to do it right.
That's what's up.
Yeah, and I got a solid team behind me too, so I'm not stressing.
No doubt, man. You mentioned that you're writing beyond this project, but then you also mentioned how impactful this writing process was. I'm gonna interpret that as saying, to a certain degree, I would imagine it was a bit therapeutic.
Yes, it was almost kind of, it was hard at first, but on the back end coming out of it, it's that breath of fresh air that I think you're trying to relate to or relate with me on. It was something I needed to get out. I felt, like I said, I was making music that belonged in a club or on radio, and I felt this yearning to really express who I am through a project. Beyond that, I really feel like I can have fun now and really get creative, if that makes sense. Not like this wasn't, but I felt like I had to get specific stuff out, so now I can kind of, have fun and almost just kind of wing it on certain songs and projects. Something I really want to do past this is an all live instrument album.
Oh, word.
Yeah, like an acoustic album.
Word.
That's something I've really looked into, just because obviously what live instruments can bring to the table, especially through performance. And I've always wanted one of those, NPR tiny desk sounding kind of projects.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, man, because there's a handful of artists in the city who've performed, who I've seen perform with the live band. Artists that I'm a fan of anyway, and seeing them perform with the live band, it brings out just a whole different flavor to those songs that you're very, very familiar with. So I think that would be cool. And there are so many good artists in the city that it'd be cool to see a band get together and rock behind you.
And I've only done it once. Shout out to Aaron Ross. He's a local comedian. He did the Who's the Ross show, like 800 some episodes or something at Dante's. And he always brought local artists out to perform a couple of songs, and then he'd interview them. But that was the first time I ever got to perform with a 3-piece. And I just remember, because Bo Jackson was a big song that I put out. I think it was the first time I got on the radio here. And hearing that, not only with different instruments, but played out as I'm performing it. And it all happened on the spot. We kind of sound checked it, and then I just performed it. It gave me the chills throughout the song. It was really cool to hear. So I've always wanted to do something beyond that. And I haven't heard anything with a live drummer yet on like my own music. So really looking forward into looking down that avenue and seeing, what I can put together. I don't think it'll be as big as this project, 13 to 15 songs,
Right.
because it'll take a little bit too long. But
Right.
yeah, I definitely plan on giving you all something good.
That's what's up, B.
Yeah.
I'm like I said, having had an opportunity to listen to the new project, really excited for it to be out and for people to have an opportunity to mess with it and just really gain, I think, gain a lot of what you described wanting to put forth, which is for a lot of people to be healing, for a lot of people to be maybe just awareness of their situation, maybe a way that they didn't realize it, and then for a lot of people, just really good music.
Yeah.
So
We kind of need to step away from the table of what's going on, especially in America right now. We need to figure ourselves out and then come back to the table and converse on how we can address these problems, just because nothing's getting done in this time of, just like I said, hysteria, man. But yeah, I really do think that there are a lot of artists in hip hop, not only mainstream but in Portland right now, that are really, rapping to make a difference.
Yeah.
And they're putting out music that not only is putting on their communities, but it's putting people in a better mode as far as energy and really pushing the positive. Hip hop, like you said, it's competitive, and a lot of that brings negative energy. But there's, the reason that I got in and have been in it so long for such little pay at this point, and just doing it for the love of it is
Yeah.
because of that positive energy and that love that I feel, when I'm at those shows and I'm performing, or I'm chopping up with someone like you.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I would be remiss if I didn't just take one quick minute to talk about Hip Hop Day. And there's that smile, V. You were so gracious, and you expressed on social media how impactful that was for you to be. Well, I'm gonna just let you kind of share what you shared.
Hip Hop Day, man, it's just to be. I mean, I don't even think I've had a full set on Hip Hop Day. I've just been there. I've gotten to do, a song here and there, but just seeing how it can be, put on like that, and how it can literally be on City Hall steps.
Yeah.
And it kind of brought it full circle to the fact that cops were literally, shutting down shows just because they were hip hop less than 5 years ago, or probably a little bit more than that. But to see it come that far, and then just to see so many artists that, I've struggled with over the last years just to get to this point. We're all on the same bill, and we're all in support of one another and just having fun, just because it's a different event and it's right at City Hall. It just feels different, and the energy just feels one of a kind. Obviously, Star is someone huge in that, and Star was always someone that I saw from a distance and was like, I want to earn that dude's respect. Just, I don't know what it was. It was his energy, man. It was how deeply integrated, hip hop was in his DNA.
Yeah.
He lived hip hop, and so I figured if I can get him to understand this music I'm putting out, and I can get him behind me, I can honestly have more of a personal belief in myself that I am part of I am Portland hip hop.
Yeah.
So shout out to Star, and I really, I was really hurt by his passing. I can't even imagine how someone like you was responding to it. But the fact that before all that, and before he did get ill, I was at X-Ray, and I was at Mic Check, and I was able to, chop it up with him briefly,
Yeah.
and just see that I was earning his respect. And he kind of, made it known here and there. And it just those little things made me really appreciate him and appreciate myself as an artist in Portland, just because I got to be around him and kind of be a part of the energy that he put out into the city.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, and I can tell you, based on conversations that Star and I had about you and your path, you definitely earned his respect, B. So
That means a lot, man.
Yeah. Chopping up with my guy Samuel first. I am. We're live streaming this right now on YouTube. It's probably something I'll pull out.
You need to do this more often.
I
man.
know. So shout out to my guy Tope, man. Tope has done Klyph Notes twice.
One of the first artists I saw in Portland.
And like I've been rocking with Tope for years, man. Just a really, really good dude. And I don't remember which interview it was that I did, but he said he was listening to the podcast, and he was like, "Man, it'd be so cool if I could actually like see, you know. So that was at least a year ago, and so now I'm in a place where we can live stream.
Yeah.
So if you dig the idea of live streaming Klyph Notes, man, shout out to my guy Tope for sparking that.
Shout out to all the people, texting me right now. I did a brief reach out, but shout out to all my family, man. Shout out to my older brother Luke, his family. Shout out to my niece Leia. I love you. But yeah, I appreciate everybody's support, and especially your support, man. If you are a major platform and a major big step for these artists to get their careers on track and market themselves like I'm talking about, without people like you, we wouldn't have a major, outlet like radio for Portland artists to, get exposure.
No, I appreciate it, B. I appreciate it. And, I feel just as you do, we have a responsibility to put positive energy out there. There is so much negative that's going on in the world right now. So whenever I have an opportunity to do that, I want to do it. And I applaud, again, man, I applaud the way you carry yourself. I applaud the way you're moving with your career. And I think that it's a testament to what can be done. And I hope more people look at that as a pathway for their careers. So,
I appreciate that, man.
For sure.
Man, thanks for having me out, and I can't wait to get this music and for to have you actually be able to play it without.
Yes. Look, I'm already playing some joints.
You played
now.
it back twice in a row on X-Ray. I can't believe that, man. That was amazing.
My guy Samuel First. Be on the look for the new project, Self. It's going to be dropping soon on Rare Vibe Records. We'll keep you folks up in terms of information on video releases, and then of course on the album releases. We'll let people know about that too.
Yes, sir. DJ Klyph, thanks for having me, man.
Man, I so appreciate you, bro. For real.
Yeah.
Yes, y'all. So that's it, man. That's another episode of the Klyph Notes podcast with your guy DJ Klyph. Thank you so much to Samuel First for coming through and chopping it. Once again, big ups to all those who support us. My guy Theory Has It for doing the official theme song for the Klyph Notes podcast. X-Ray FM for being gracious hosts of the recording of the Klyph Notes podcast, and of course Acapella Apparel for their support. Remember, you can check out the Klyph Notes podcast on all podcast platforms: Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. If you rock with us on Apple Podcasts, please rate and comment. That does a lot for helping us grow what we want to do. If you rock with Alexa, you can get us on Alexa as well. Just say, Alexa, enable the Klyph Notes podcast, and there's opportunities to rate there as well. You can hit me up anywhere on social media at DJ Klyph, at DJKLYPH on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of that. Catch me every Saturday night on X-Ray FM. Welcome to the neighborhood from 8 to 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, playing all kinds of joints that you're not going to hear anywhere else, like L for Love from my guy Samuel First. Yeah, man, let's just continue to build this positive energy in our communities. Until we have an opportunity to do this again, God bless. Peace.